Brandon Smitley here from BrandonSmitley.com and EliteFTS.com. Got a question today from online client Rick. He recently emailed me and said that doing his programming, things are going great. He's gearing up for a meet in 6 to 8 weeks or so, and he went through the rule book, and he's overseas, and he realized that with IPF rules that he can't bench on his toes. He's got to bench left-footed, but he's always benched on his toes. What does he need to do differently to succeed on the platform come meet day? Well, the obvious thing is you're going to have to bench left-footed. So you're going to have to get some practice in that. There's no question there. The big difference is going to be understanding your setup and maximizing your setup for meet day. Most lifters, if they bench tucked, their heel will not get the ground, but they're still going to be pushing their heel into the floor to get that leg drive while squeezing the bench with their adductors. So you're squeezing the bench, you're obviously all curled up into a ball, nice and tight. Certainly a good thing with that style. Now, if you're going to go to flat-footed, you have kind of two options. If you're really flexible, you can still tuck and get your feet to the floor, so at least flat on the floor. So if you have the mobility and the flexibility in your hips to be able to do that, that's what you should do, because it's probably going to mimic to what you were already doing anyways. Now, if you don't have that mobility and flexibility to get your hips back, you're going to have to learn how to take your feet and push them out into the floor, still having your arch that you normally have. Your arch isn't going to be as big, but you're going to have a ton more leg drive pushing up into the bar. So that's the two major differences that I'm going to see when it comes to benching. And then some people are in that like middle ground, and personally I think you're kind of losing some poundage somewhere. You can either get more of an arch and leg drive by pulling your feet back, or you can get a ton more leg drive pushing your feet out. I think picking one or the other is the best circumstance. Now, having your feet under, you're obviously going to have maybe possibly a little more back stress. That can be argued. I know I've noticed some when I tuck really hard. That's why when I train, I tend not to tuck until I get to my work sets. Otherwise, I'll go splayed out for my warm-ups to save my low back. So those are the main things that you need to consider on that. Here's a short demonstration of how your leg setup should be if you're going to go with a flat foot benching style.
Okay, so what you're going to see here with the flat foot benching, I got this a little bit in slow-mo. I got my feet splayed out, and I'm creating tension by pressing my heels hard into the floor. When I press up, I give all the drive that I have up into what would be the bar. So as you see me sliding, when you have a good bench, it doesn't have near the amount of smoothness my bench has. Your whole body will stay the same, be able to drive your traps into the bar. And an overview, same thing. As you can see, my feet are out far, and I'm basically creating all that tension in my hips with my feet pushing out against the floor. And again, here from the foot view, as you can really see here, my heel drive is what's really important. My feet are out nice and wide. I'm creating that tension and really using that to push myself up. So you can kind of see my toes kind of come up. That's how you can tell I'm applying pressure really hard into the floor, and you may even see my feet slide a little bit.
Gave you some demonstrations and some overlay audio on what I was doing there, basically with like an invisible bar, how I would set up. What I would say is if you're going to go with those, with the flat-footed benching, you got to make these changes like you do kind of at the last minute, Rick. If you squat in weightlifting shoes, that's what you're going to want to use if you're going to try to tuck, because you're going to get that extra inch to 2 inch depending on your heel lift. You're going to get that extra heel lift to be able to tuck back. As I showed in that demonstration, that's how I would bench my feet out. You want them pushed out hard, open those hips up, basically almost like a sumo stance. which means you're going to have a wider base of support to push through to get more force. So you can't really push much. If my feet were in front of me, I can't really push to get a ton of force. But as I go out here and I push, I can feel my hips engage, and I'm really driving back almost just like a box squat. Very similar thing. That's the way Matt Winning taught me how to do it, and that's how I use it for my warm-ups. I don't compete that way, but if I compete in a flat-footed federation, that's exactly how I would do it. The key thing is going to be keeping those legs driven into the floor as hard as you can, and then when it comes down and you get that press command, push with everything you have, back and up into the bar. Your hips shouldn't come off. That's the plus about the flat-footed benching. If your hips come off the bench, your feet aren't out far enough. Your feet are too far in because it's allowing your hips to pop off the bench. If it's out far enough, you should be fine. Your hips shouldn't come off. You're almost going to be kind of like hovering, it's going to seem like, with maximal weights and that kind of tightness pressing the floor the way it should be. So hopefully that can get you to hit some PRs on the platform in a few weeks. And try to make the best out of a worst case scenario. I think it's actually going to be a good stepping stone for you, because if you're going to be able to compete in IPF for a long term, something you have to get used to, so you might as well start practicing now. As always, if you've got questions, you can feel free to ask me a question on the Elite FTS Q&A.